To be honest, I lost my train of thought and don't really know exactly where I left off. But I want to emphasize that the longer you spend in these spaces, the more fluent you become in communicating with it, and the more quickly things like manifestation can occur. In there, you are given bits of knowledge and information about this life that you wouldn't receive otherwise, but you wouldn't understand what it is until after you've experienced it. Like, I've heard of like some people having pictures on the walls. So inside of it can be any kind of structure. It can be a cave, it could be a pyramid, it could be a forest, it can be any kind of environment. It could be underwater. It's just anything, okay? For instance, one of them that I've heard about is like inside of a pyramid type structure. You know, you're inside of it, you don't really know what it is, but the shape and size and structure of it, or what it's made of, kind of might give it away to a time period that you're either familiar with or aspire to live in. But the walls, there could be a language written on the walls that you don't understand in the beginning, and then later on in your life, as you spend more time there, you will find that that language will be introduced to you. You'll end up traveling the world or something and finding a new place to live, and then finding that this language is the language that they speak natively. Or after a couple of years of spending time there, you'll just learn what some of the symbols mean while you're in there. I've heard of faces being drawn on the walls, and these are faces that people see. Like, there will be like a series of 10 faces, and they will recognize the first 3. And then someday, eventually, as you do this for months, years, however long, you meet the 4th person. So you learn why these people are important in your life. You don't know who these people are. Their faces will be familiar to you when the time comes, but until then, it's just a picture on the wall. You don't know them yet. You do, but you don't. So it's incredible. I learned something about myself just earlier today, and I think that's why I really wanted to talk about it, because once you see it, it feels like it was the most obvious thing in the world that you should have seen it and noticed it before. And you don't know why. It just didn't occur to you. But then once you do make the realization, you can take another step. It's like you're ready to move on to that next step. You thought you were ready before, but something inside of you decided when you truly were ready. So you just move on to that next step. It's just heir apparent. You're like, oh, why couldn't I have done this sooner? You don't know. Something else out there knows better than you, I guess. You just have to trust that that's the series of events that's supposed to occur. That's all we can do. So, I would like to talk about mine and what's so special about mine, maybe as an example sometime, but I don't feel ready to share that yet, because I feel like this is still a topic that so many people don't want to share and talk about, because many people don't believe that it's real, or people just don't know that it exists. And that's where I feel like things like spells and witchcraft and any form of magic come from, is other people's understanding of this reality that is so different from our own that it seems alien and improbable. But there are people in ancient civilizations. I mean, just think of how much time has already passed for the human race that we do and don't know of. Somebody somewhere had to have learned something incredible to make these things real. there's things like, you've got the Quran, the Bible, any other holy work. I think they're all important. I do not care whether or not you think they're evil or wrong or holy or whatever. I think that they all hold knowledge. There's a reason that they have lasted for so long, and I don't think that any one person can rule out one or another as more right or wrong than the other, because we all have a different perception of the same thing. It's the same person, or multiple people can read each different thing, and they're going to get so many different interpretations out of it. It's how humans work, okay? That's what makes us so special, is that we all have such a different take on the same things. And even when you read something twice, it's still not the same. So even you don't have the same perception of something twice, typically. Much less, like, hundreds of thousands of times. So, that's very much my take on the veil. I feel like there's ways to communicate with life, with yourself, in many different ways that hasn't been explored because we are all too distracted with our everyday goings on, and the things that you think in your mind and feel in your heart are so important. We don't even realize it. They're everything. We just kind of get stuck on one side or another and don't really explore. Don't really vibe with a lot of stuff. So, I encourage you to be explorative and open-minded and open-hearted, because that is something that civilization nowadays just can't do. It's so discouraged. It's so shamed to be open and vulnerable and to allow your own consciousness to expand beyond yourself. It's just not encouraged. So I encourage you to, but I want you to also be protected at the same time. Practicing dedicated meditation, at least breathing, okay? Breathing is so underappreciated and taken for granted. I want you to understand it's one of the most important things you can do, obviously, but there's a way of doing it correctly and incorrectly for your health. And I know it may sound stupid that we should learn in school how to breathe properly, but I really do think that it would help our species a great deal if we did. It's like meditation. There's lots of studies to promote the idea that meditation at all ages is extremely important for the brain development, among other things. But breathing is extremely important for heart, lung, spiritual development. And someday we'll get there. And I'll need your help to get it there. There's other groups out there who feel the same way. Maybe they won't tackle it so aggressively, but I think if there's nothing else that you can do to help get you to where you can communicate fluidly and confidently and just immaculately with life, it's to learn to breathe properly. And maybe I'll talk about that next, because it is incredibly important. I can't stress it enough. Just learning to breathe and feel whole emotions, okay? That's also incredibly important, the emotional side of it. Because you can breathe all you want properly. Still getting over sick, sorry. Rest in peace, microphone users. But you can't feel crappy at the same time. You have to feel wholesome emotions. You have to feel awesome. You have to know and embrace how cool and awesome you are. You're not alone. You are you. And no one else can do that better than you can. Okay? So take my word for it. Practice feeling good. I know that is something that a lot of people need a lot of practice on. And practice even breaths in and out. Just take a couple minutes each day to just think about how you're breathing. You want to fill your breath, fill your lungs, and empty them completely. Over and over and over again. As long as you can. Even in times of stress. Especially in times of stress. Someone freaking you out, don't forget to breathe. I remember in high school with public speaking, that was my thing. I'd always pass out and I never knew why until my speech teacher finally told me. She's like, you forget to breathe when you're presenting. And that's why you hit the floor. So she'd always stop me. She'd pause my time and tell me to just breathe and resume whenever I felt normal. I mean, you never really feel normal. It would take forever, but it would help. It would help a lot. So breathing is the most important thing you can do. We'll talk more about how you can access deeper levels, but just start breathing, okay? Ugh. But if you've watched all of these videos all the way through, I hope I've teased your brain a little bit on what's possible and how amazing it is, okay? But I'll talk more on it. This is just scratching the surface of all of the potentials of life. And I can't wait to share it with people. I know there are people out there that are looking for it. I just have to find a way to get out there and find those people. Help them find me. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you know a couple people too. But someday, we'll get there. It'll just take some time. I hope you stay with me along the ride, okay? But until next time.